Is anybody missing this bag?
Nina, it might be Bill's.
Bill Strauss?
I think it is. He was looking.
Said he was missing one last night.
So if you see him, tell him.
I sent an email already.
About the bag?
Yes.
There were a couple of people who want to talk to me about their room. And we talked earlier, so just meet me at 2 o'clock over here, okay? So we're very happy to welcome and introduce you to Tulku Sherdor. Yes, he's a real person. Just kidding. Very real person. So he's just come back from Nepal, and where he's been giving teachings, taking teachings, and doing some very intense chanting and prayer practices. He is the executive director of the Blazing Wisdom Institute. And they actually have programs here. One of them is the annual Tibetan non-sectarian peace program that sometimes Krishnadas has sung at, but basically includes Tibetan chants and meditations from the different schools of Buddhism. He's also going to be doing a Memorial Day weekend retreat here, which he can talk to you about later, and explain. It's a special retreat about tuning into the subtle energy. I'm not gonna, there's a full bio of Tulku Sherdor, but which you can read on the Garrison website and also his, so also look up blazingwisdom.org, right?
I think so.
Okay, good. So we're going to do today, he's going to talk a little bit about what his practices are, and we're actually going to do, this is an introduction to Tibetan chanting workshop. So we're actually going to do some chanting together, and he will instruct you on that, and then later we'll have a Q&A, so you can ask him some questions as well. Okay? Thank you.
Dusum Sanjay Tam Jechung O Ridan Shukor Jamso Chadda Rinchen Sawe Lama Shabdur Rimame Bala Gosam Raktu Gebe Kone Chak Sarashin Shamsun Yewarji Darshan Sanjan Tam Cheji Jumin Chendro Origin Jilabdus Omin Jiji Inji Badana Dusum Sanjay Punji Mo Ni Ransam Chukurungun Sam Tunzebe So will the Mishabla Chasar de Gungju Topa Vabar Jinji Latus Namaria Hai Kedan Ledan Jinke Jum Data Mi Kenanda Drua Kanji Dragi Jizambar Tamji Ketu Dagi Jutendo Sanjanam Jisambadang Loi Chedrak Jitawar Jejong Tomon Debaye Jiji Gora Gordus Chasarvadan Jijin Shabadan Jisu Yiram Kurshin Salvaye Giva Chunse Dagi Jizaba Tamje Zobe Janju Chimbo. Good morning. I am in a state that I like to call lucid delirium. Yeah. Because I was just in Nepal, as Nina mentioned, for 45 days, and then it took 45 hours of travel to get back late Thursday night. Body clock has no clue at this point. Coffee helps. So I'm glad to hear there's some doubt as to my personhood, but I don't know. That's always a worthwhile investigation, right? Is there really a person there or not? Very important investigation in Tibetan Buddhism. So first, thank you for inviting me here, KD. Yeah. Always happy to have Krishnadas is always so helpful with our many activities to bring message of peace, compassion, and wisdom to the world. He also was kind enough to come to the inauguration of our new center in Socrates, New York in November. Some other lamas. I was thinking just yesterday, because that was the only chance to really think about this, I was thinking that I mean, in the popular culture, more commonly we associate the chanting and music with maybe the Hindu yogic Indian tradition, and when you think of Buddhism, even Tibetan Buddhism, then you think of more quiet sitting meditation and contemplation, analysis, debate. But it's funny, having just come back from this time in Nepal where I spent at least 20 solid days doing nothing but chanting, 14 hours a day. It reminded me that our Tibetan Buddhist tradition is all about using voice, heart, connected energy for chanting, for meditation. And there's really almost no, at least on public display, there's almost no silent meditation at all. That may be surprising to hear. I think in personal or very private practice, of course, one does whatever one does, but as the meditation rituals and practices develop, there's always engagement of full dimension of our being, of body, speech, and mind as one integrated whole. And not only is there a lot of chanting, right? There's a lot of music. Maybe many or most of you have heard Tibetan liturgical music. Yes? Yes, good. Which is a brand unto itself, right? And most recently, I participated in this 10-day Amitayus Buddha ritual with 500 other people in Kanying Monastery in Bodhanath in Nepal. We started about 6 o'clock in the morning and ended about 8 o'clock at night. And the first thing you do when you sit down the first day, there's a chant master called Umze. And he chants this traditional 7-line supplication to Guru Rinpoche, the Tsikdun Soldep, as slowly as humanly possible. 7 lines, it can take half an hour. And your mind hates it, you know? Get on with it. And then, later there's bathroom breaks that are too short. And you're like, well, if we cut the chanting down a little bit, we'd have more time for the bathroom breaks. This makes no sense. It's Western kind of energy. But as you sink into the practice day after day, then the mind slows down, the heart really kind of connects with it. And then the slower, the better. And you hear every nuance in every moment and where the breath begins and ends and the pauses are. And it becomes more and more rich and beautiful. And that's when the music takes over as well, because in the beginning it's kind of cacophonous, all these horns and cymbals and jalins and the radon long horns and big drums. Then again, as you go deeper and deeper into the practice, it starts to kind of resonate with your whole being in more and more subtle ways. You feel different organs kind of vibrating with the different sounds, and inside the marrow of your bones, and your mind stops and something shifts in your brain, and you kind of recalibrate. This music kind of works on you. It's very interesting. And then when we chant, there's many, many kinds of chanting for many purposes as well. When we do, as Nina mentioned, this Tibetan Buddhist peace prayer service or gathering that we do every year, when you chant in that context, then often we do something called dungom, which means recitation meditation, where as you're chanting, your mind and your heart are fully connecting with the meaning of the words, including by building up visualizations that are being described in the words, or through what we can call attitude adjustment, building up certain states of mind or viewpoints like devotion and compassion as we think about, reflect upon the meaning of the words as we recite them. So Tibetan Buddhist tradition is one that is musically incredibly rich and diverse. Seems like every school, every monastery, every Lama has different melodies and different approaches, and some of them are very traditional and have been sung or chanted for hundreds of years in succession. And others are newly revealed through what we call treasure revelations or treasure teachings. New melodies, new styles are introduced. So regionally and otherwise, there's, I would say, thousands of different rhythms, cadences, melodies, styles, musical styles in this tradition. Certainly, one of the most important purposes for this chanting as part of an overall integrated or synergistic meditation training or mind training or heart training is to spark, to focus, and to enhance or increase states of mind like compassion and devotion. And not just for their own sakes, but as very subtle states of being that are highly conducive to realizing non-dual wisdom. So the method or technique of chanting and music and reflection goes hand in hand with, or in service of, wisdom realization. This is the goal. So even if we feel very lucid or focused or even blissful, deeply relaxed and attuned in meditation practice and in chanting meditation practice, the goal is to use these energies and these states, these experiences, to go deeper and to realize more and more subtle states of awareness. So it's a refinement or an adjustment of the frequency of awareness itself. And awareness is a code word in Tibetan Buddhism for our most innate or true being. Not awareness like, now I'm reaching for the cup, now I'm moving the cup to my mouth. Not that kind of awareness, but unimpeded, unconfined, fearless, non-dual awareness. Our most basic being, which is full of bliss, full of clarity, full of insight, full of compassion. So this is what it's all about in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And somehow, I find myself with greater and greater frequency nowadays teaching Tibetan Buddhist meditation, including chanting, including devotional practices, including, most importantly, what we call guru yoga practice. Teaching at, like Shivananda ashrams, for example. I just did a 30-hour course at the ashram in the Bahamas in December, which was mainly for the swamis who run the ashram, to introduce them to these different dimensions of meditation practice, and that went very well. So I think when we talk about chanting and devotion and deep meditation practice within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we are at heart talking about a deeper or even universal yogic tradition, which knows no such boundaries as Buddhism or Hinduism, and probably predates even those labels or those particular styles or traditions. Something deeper, older, and more fundamental. So I mentioned this term Guru Yoga. Have you heard this before? Guru Yoga? A few people. We talk about devotion to the Guru, right? Prayer to the Guru, bhakti. Why? What is the Guru, right? What is devotion? What are we trying to accomplish? Are you trying to connect two things that are separate? Me over here and the Guru out there, over there somewhere. Me, the small being, and the Guru, the great being or even principle of truth, of enlightenment. So is prayer in the end dualistic? Me asking for your help in some way? Asking for blessings, we say, adhisthana, from the Guru. Is that something that one person can give to another or not? And I think you learn the answers to those fundamental questions by engaging in the practices, because it keeps changing as your experience matures. So at first, all prayer seems, and in all the traditions, really, all the spiritual traditions in the world, seems like the helpless asking for help from the empowered. But the process of deep prayer, of devotion, of chanting, of meditation, is itself empowering. Until that boundary, the appearance of that boundary, of that separation, is itself what is transcended or dissolved as we connect with our own being within, which is never separate from that which we seek, from that to which we are devoted. We are the devotees of our own true nature in the end and nothing else. But you can hear that, and it might resonate, it might mean something, but when you practice it, you understand the meaning of that more and more personally and deeply. We say in our tradition to mix the mind inseparably with the wisdom mind of the Guru. But you can only do that if the separation between them is apparent and not final and real. This great contemporary master in our tradition, you may have heard of, named Garland Rinpoche, likes to say, the Buddha mind of the Buddha and my Buddha mind and your Buddha mind are just Buddha mind, not three separate things. So that non-separation or non-duality or non-triplicity is what we realize through practices like devotional chanting and meditation, and compassionate concern for the suffering of all beings. And if I had more time, I would talk to you more about how, in the end, things like compassion for beings and devotion to enlightened beings are just labels for what is essentially the same state of mind. But connecting to realized non-dual awareness and all the truths that are revealed as we connect to that more and more deeply. Maybe that's enough about that as an introduction, and we can talk more later. What I wanted to do with you this morning and the time that we have is first just give you a little sample or taste of some of the devotional recitations that we do or I do on a daily basis, among so many, just to select a few. And I'll give you my English translations first, so you can sit and just rest in your own state of natural awareness and let the sound resonate with that meaning that you have just heard. And then after doing a bit of that, I'll walk you through a guided Guru Yoga meditation, which has a number of steps, and then we can chant something very simple together. Krishna Das and I have had a number of opportunities to chant together, and he likes to chant things like a Tara mantra. And I think his way of chanting Tara Mantra is very complicated, and he thinks my way of chanting it is too complicated. So we won't do anything that complicated from anyone's point of view, which is very simple. Okay, so these first chants are supplications to the Guru, and the ones I've chosen for you today are all simple supplications or prayers that are from our old school or Nyima tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, and so they all relate to this figure known as Guru Rinpoche or Padmasambhava, the lotus-born one. Guru Rinpoche means Guru, Rinpoche means most precious Guru. So it's a name, but it's also the principle of Guru-ness or Guruhood. But as a historical figure, Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava, known by many names, the Guru of Udayana, was the originator of the whole Tibetan Buddhist tradition in many respects, having been invited by the Tibetan king to come from India and tame the wild beings of Tibet, both human and non-human, and prepare the land to receive the subtle wisdom teachings of the Buddhist traditions of India. So the first practice that I do every morning is called the Mundro, or the preliminary prayers, which involves many different stages, but it begins with these supplications to the Guru, and these are drawn from historical figures like Longchenpa. You may have heard of Longchenpa, a great master of what we call the Dzogchen tradition in Tibetan Buddhism. Dzogchen is a popular term now in our culture. So this first chant means the following. Guru, heed me. Let me talk about that for a moment. In Tibetan, Lama Cheno, and we'll chant this later together, Lama Cheno. This is one of the richest expressions in the whole tradition, because Cheno means, please know me, please give me your full attention, direct your attention to me. It means, you do know me better than even I know myself. You know me more deeply and truly than my little dualistic, conditioned, conceptual mind can understand my deeper being. You know what's really going on. It means I put my trust completely in your hands, which means I surrender my small, limited, dualistic, conceptual ego mind to higher and deeper wisdom that knows no such pain and confusion, no such limitations. So it means entrusting yourself to wisdom itself. It means all of these things and many more. So this is a common beginning of many chants, this Lama chant. So this means, Guru, heed me, Lord of all lineages of awakening, principal figure of all mandalas, ruler of all worlds and creatures, sovereign of both samsara and nirvana. Kind root Guru, see me with eyes of compassion. See my obscure, dark ignorance with eyes of compassion. See with eyes of compassion that I haven't even the thought that death is certainly approaching and soon. Look with eyes of compassion at my mundane craving for food, clothing, comfort. See with compassionate vision that I haven't generated a trace of resolve to truly attain liberation, awakening, enlightenment. Lord of refuge, you are my only true hope. See me always with eyes of compassion in this life, the next, and the bardo in between. Okay, that's the first one. Lama Chenu, Lama Chenu, Lama Chenu. Rignam Kunji Dabol Chilkur Kunji So Tenya Kunji Chabda Korde Kunji Palgun Rinjan Sawe Lame Tuje chenji zishi mare munbe dribla. Tuje chenji zishi jiwa onya mela. Tuje chenji zishi togu shenpa chenla. Tuje chenji zishi loche yonji mela. Tuje chenji zishi Chagan cherang mato resa shena medo diji bardo kundu tuje chenji zishi. The next chant in this series, which is shorter, says, essence of all sources of refuge, embodiment of wisdom, love, and powerful ability to benefit others. Kind lake-born Vajra, Guru Rinpoche, I direct this prayer to you from my heart. Bless my being with compassion, always to remain inseparable from you. Jabne kundu chimo chense nupe dagni rinchen soche dorje ningne sorwa depso tagdu yerme tukje dagje jinji lo shi. And the third and final prayer in this series that begins my practice each morning, again begins with this Guru, heed me, the Lama Cheno, and says, kind Guru, my sole refuge, please rise from the blooming lotus of faith in the center of my heart, and to protect this unfortunate one who is tormented by intense karma and disturbed states of mind. Take your seat on the crown of my head as the ornament of the chakra of great bliss. Moreover, please rouse my mindfulness and attentiveness. So there's a visualization that goes with this. You imagine the Guru seated on a lotus in the center of your heart, the lotus of faith, rising through the central channel and taking a seat above the crown of your head where the Guru remains as your anchor of mindfulness, of love and attention throughout all of your activities, day and night. Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno. Nyingu Debe Gezar Shepane, Chaute Drinjen Lama Yarla Shem. Le danyon mon rabo zirwai, karbang badala chobichu, chivor de chen korla jendushu, drendang shishin gonjang shensu. Three Guru supplications from our what we call Longchen Yingtik tradition in Nyima, which means heart essence of the great expanse of love and awareness. Then further along in this morning sadhana practice, the preliminary practices of Tibetan Buddhism, there's a Guru Yoga practice, and there's many different supplications in that Guru Yoga practice, and I'll give you just one of them as a sample. Different melodies. This one means, Venerable, precious Guru, you are the glorious gathering of the blessings and compassion of all Buddhas, of all awakened beings, the sole protector of all sentient beings. My body and possessions, lungs, heart and chest, I offer you without reservation. From now until I fully awaken, no matter whether I am happy or sad, whether things go well or go poorly, throughout all the highs and lows, Venerable Great Lotus-born One, you know. My body and possessions, lungs, heart, and chest. Lungs is the chanting, right? Heart is the heart of devotion, the heart of dedication, the heart of perseverance, and the chest means actual exertion, physical effort, determination. Jetang Guru Rinpoche Chene Sanje Tamche Tuje Jinla De Pepa Zinjen Yanji Ganche Le Dong Long Chu Lo Ni Dong Te Maha Me Par Che La Din Chong Tu Ma To Ba Chir De Renye Ta Men Jetson Tenpo Pejon Ten Jetson Tenpo Pejon Ten Lama Chen. It's getting very quiet in the room. The next prayer is very, very famous, almost universal in this tradition. It's called the Dusam Sanjay prayer, also known as the 6 Vajra verses. And this is a treasure revelation from a 19th century master named Chokyi Rinpoche, the last of what are called the 108 great treasure revealers, revealing teachings from the original master Kalu Rinpoche, appropriate to the times and places to benefit beings. And one of the people I just chanted this many times with in recent days is the reincarnation of Chokyi Rinpoche, called Chogling Rinpoche, the brother of my teacher Chokyi Nyima Rinpoche in Nepal. And these treasure masters are wild and crazy wisdom masters. They will do and say absolutely anything at any time, in any place, to help wake others up to their true nature. So this particular one we have with us nowadays, Chogling Rinpoche. Many stories about him. how when he was young, growing up under the care of His Holiness the 16th Karmapa in Rumtek Monastery in India, how he would like, for example, to throw rocks at some of the other incarnate lamas, or stop in front of their rooms and pee. Whatever it takes. No fear, no shame, no ego, no nothing. Just wake up. Just wake up. Always wake up time around such beings. It was just pretty, let's say it puts your nerves on edge a lot. You never know what's coming next. You can't prepare. The more you try, the more you lose, which is part of the idea. So this prayer that comes from the original Chogling Chogling Rinpoche, revealing the teaching of Guru Rinpoche from way back. The Dusum Sanjay prayer goes like this, and it's a supplication to different manifestations or aspects of Guru Rinpoche. It says, Guru Rinpoche, the Buddha of past, present, and future. Dewa Champo, the Guru of great bliss, the source of all siddhis or spiritual attainments. Dudul Drakbotsel, the wrathful one who subdues negativity, who removes all obstacles. Grant your blessings, we pray. Through those blessings, may all obstacles to our spiritual practice, our maturation, including outer, inner, and secret obstacles, all be swiftly removed, and may all of our positive aspirations be fulfilled. Every one of these words has so much meaning to explore, and you can study it conceptually or intellectually, or learn the meanings again through the practice, through the chanting, and through the quiet meditation. So there's many melodies for this, but let's try this one. Dusum Sanjay Guru Chinudrukanda Dewa Chinvesha Barje Kamsaradudrabo Samsarvadepso Jinjilamduso Chinam Sangwe Barje Shiva Dang Sambhavanji Drubarjinjila Dusum Sanjay Guru Rinpoche Madhukanda Dewa Chinvesha Bharte Kamsa Dudramata Sarvadevso Jinjilamdaso Chinam Sangwe Varje Shivadam Sambalundi Drubar Jinjila Urgyen Rinpoche La Sarvade Urgyen Bharati Mijonjin Tanjin Sambal Drubadam Chodam Tamang Urgyen Sadus. Just drop concern with the physical body. Drop concern with the agitation of the elements and the subtle energies of prana of wind and body. Drop a concern with the thoughts in the mind of past, present, and future, and all that anxiety, hope, and fear that instigate and perpetuate those useless cycles of thoughts and emotions. And just rest in the resonance, the blessings of such a pure prayer of devotion and compassion. Let it saturate, permeate, penetrate your entire being in and out, top to bottom. And in that way, you come back into natural alignment with yourself in a truer, deeper, and gentler way. This is the practice. One of these 10-day sadhana group rituals that we do every year at this particular monastery in Nepal, it's called the Ngakso group chant. And these practices that go on for 9 or 10 days go on in an unbroken way, day and night, non-stop. There's always somebody in the mandala, in the shrine room, chanting, some groups of people, unbroken, unchained, unbroken melody, love, devotion, compassion, awareness. Yeah. And so in the breaks, when everyone else finally gets to go out, a few minutes of sunlight here and there, or to sleep or rest, then they bring in the young monks who still have a lot of energy, you know? And they set them there and they're like, okay, chant the mantra Garland. And so they keep the whole thing flowing by chanting this mantra Garland of all the mantras of the main deities, meditation, deities of this particular practice. And it includes the mantra of Amitayus Buddha, the long life Buddha. It includes the short Chenrizik, Avalokiteshvara mantra that most people are familiar with. It includes a short mantra of Guru Rinpoche, the essence mantra, and the longer mantra. It includes the essence mantras of the 100 deity, peaceful and wrathful mandalas of our innate being, called the Shitro. And it includes the Vajrasattva short mantra. Once this mantra chain, this melody gets in your head, if you hear it, for a few days, it never leaves, for better or for worse. It's your companion for life. So it goes like this. Take it home with you. Om Amarane Ziventaye Soha Om Mane Peme Hongri Om Ahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Om Ahom Benza Guru Pema Tutrin Sarabendra Samayaza Siddhi Palahom Om Bodhicitta Mahasukha Dhyana Datu Om Rulu Om Jo Om Benzra Sato Om Amarane Zivintaye Soha Om Mane Pime Om Hri Om Ahom Benza Guru Hema Siddhi Om Ahom Benza Guru Hema Tutrin Sar Benzra Samayaza Siddhi Balahom Om Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jnana Datu Om Rulu Rulu Om Jo. Om Benzra Sato. One more cycle through. Om Amarane Ziventayi Suha. Om Mani Pime Hongri. Om Ahom Benza Guru. Hema Siddhi. Om Ahom Benza Guru. Hema Tudring Sara Benzra Samayaza. Siddhi Bala. Om Bodhicitta Mahasukajana Datu. Om Rulu Rulu Jo. Om Benzra Sato. Those of you who are practitioners of the kirtan, back and forth chanting, meditation, group chanting, know that in this process, something very special happens, which is the idea itself of me and you, me or you, let alone me versus you, disappears. And it is just chanting happening. And we are the vehicles, the instruments, the carriers of the sound, of the vibration, of the energy, and of the attitude itself, frame of mind. Looking at my clock here, I realize if we want to have some time to talk, I'm going to skip the longer guided Guru Yoga meditation and jump ahead to something where we can just chant together for a bit, which is this Lama Chenu. Right? Now you've heard it a number of times in the past hour, Lama Chenu. You know what it means. And we spend some time chanting this simple but profound verse in the peace prayer gathering every year. It's on the CD that's available for purchase, along with many chants of the Guru Rinpoche mantra that we didn't have time to get to, and the 7-line prayer and so on. Beautiful Tara chant. So let's do this Lama Cheno together for some minutes, and then just sit with the resonance of that for a few minutes, and then we'll open it up and talk. It goes like this. Lama Cheno, 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 Lama Lama Chiche, Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, 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 Lama Chiche. Let it out. Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche, Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Guru hit me. Lama Chiche, Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche. For you know my true self. Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche. You are my true self. Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche, Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche, Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche. Once more for real. Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche. Last one. Lama Cheno, Lama Cheno, Lama Chiche. Rest. We let go, release, surrender, relax, open. And so hear the calling of what is true, with sound and without sound. Take a chance on stillness. Allow stillness to happen naturally. Stillness of body, stillness of voice, stillness of energy, stillness of mind, thoughts, emotions, habit patterns, conditioning. And then see what's left. Okay then. Whenever we study, practice, teach, work in the Dharma, on the Dharma, for the Dharma, truth, we always begin with virtue, continue with virtue, and end with virtue, the three excellences. In the beginning, I did my own supplications to the Urgyen lineage gurus. In the middle, we did all these wonderful chants. In the end, we dedicate all the goodness that we gather through these activities of goodness, and we dedicate them to the welfare, to the awakening, to the essential goodness of all beings, essentially inseparable from ourselves, all with the Buddha nature. So let me please recite one or two such verses of dedication on all of our behalves, and you can hold that attitude in your heart, in your mind, and then we can talk. Sonam de tamche zikpa nye topne nye pe janam pamje shing che ka na chi balom chukpa yin sitpe tsole jowa risho jambar pavo jitar chenpa dang kuntu zampo de ante jinte te da kunji jesu daglo chingi wa te da tamche raptu mo Chanju semcho Rinpoche mache panam chejur che pa nyamba me pai hong kong ne kondu pelwar shu. And that's why we're here. Okay, microphone on the floor. When I chant, there's no one dancing in the aisles, Krishnaji.
It's okay, we're dancing in our hearts. Okay. So, in one of the early prayers that you chanted, you asked the Lama for blessings that we recognize our true nature. So, the issue is, is it the blessings of the Lama that reveals our true nature? Or is it our asking? Or is it both?
Or neither.
I didn't think that. Kasita, you have to bring that part.
I know you're only asking this question as skillful means and not because you don't know the answer.
I'd like people to think that, yeah.
You know, before I say anything about that, maybe we should invite some other people.
Sure.
So we see where people are at on this most important point.
I just had a more practical. I had a more practical question, I guess.
One second, hang
on.
on. Bill, is it on? Just see if it's green.
I got that.
We need it for the.
Okay. I had a practical question.
No, we're sticking to this question.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I should leave.
Okay, you went on.
I misunderstood.
I just want to make sure that I heard the question correctly, or if this is what was meant, that we gain awareness to our true nature by asking, or does the Guru give it to you?
Or both, or neither. No.
Okay.
What's your take on that?
I don't know if I believe that it can just come from someone.
Right. Then where does it come from, if anywhere? What makes you wake up in a way that you have not woken up before?
I have no idea.
That's a good start. That's a good start. Yeah, really, that's a good start. There's a lot of interest in this topic.
I agree. I don't know how it comes from somebody else, but I don't find it in myself. And when something you ask,
So maybe asking someone else is a way to help you find it in yourself. Hint, hint. Something.
it seems to come in the group, in the together of us all. Is
Many one Buddha natures or more than one Buddha nature?
I don't know either, but my experience is that there is power in the asking because it is opening.
Yeah. That was one of the options.
If we're taking a poll, I think it's all grace. But I think we have to invite grace. I think we have to open
The Sanskrit
grace.
blessing means almost the same thing as grace. Yeah, really. But what we mean by that is kind of the question, right? Does anyone happen to feel more awake than when we started an hour plus ago? So something happens, yes? Experientially. What I was saying in the beginning, but go ahead, whoever has the mic.
In my experience, if I'm feeling lost or disconnected, very quickly after just sitting and letting go over and over, there becomes a avalanche of longing, this asking itself just reveals itself. Everything seems to melt away.
You know that exercise that they do even in like corporate trainings where you let yourself fall backwards and trust that someone's going to catch you? In a way, what we're doing, another hint, is letting go and trusting that our own Buddha nature catches us, because it's really there. But we don't know that until we let go and find ourselves there. Go ahead. Maybe one more on this. I'll say, and then we can talk about other things.
Maybe we are the guru, so it's just a trick. So like what Krishna Das was saying about how Maharaji didn't teach anything. He just hung out, and the light of his being unlocked our light. Just a thought.
We all have this basic nature. We are awake to that to different degrees, kind of uniquely, in fact. And we only see what we see, and we don't see yet what we don't see. We don't know. We don't know in our own experience what it's like to be more awake than we are right now, until we're given hints or sparks, introductions, pointing outs. Things resonate. And so if we use the metaphor of light, everyone is radiating the luminosity or light of their own true nature in more or less distorted ways all the time. And so how do we pick up those messages? How do we attune to those frequencies? We can see light just in the burning end of a stick of incense. We can see light in a small candle flame. We can see light of a light bulb. We can see light of a bonfire. But when the sun of complete awakening is shining over the sky of our own being and all beings' being, then the natural quality of that pervasive, you could say indiscriminate radiance of the sun touches all beings, nurtures all beings, reflects, resonates with the light within them. And so the best way to wake up is to be in the presence of awakening, because if there is no true and final boundary between one Buddha nature and another Buddha nature, then wherever that Buddha nature is present and strong and radiant, then all those who are even a little bit open or receptive to it will be touched by it and changed by it. And this is what the apparent existence of a separate or external guru offers us, is that kind of radiant presence that touches our own nascent or newborn or indwelling radiant awareness. And so there's no more skillful method to wake up than to willingly, and as someone said, longingly tune ourselves to that wakeful energy wherever it is present and radiant. And so I said, as you practice, then all of these ideas give way to an evolving personal and direct experience, where the sense of a guru outside and the sense of the entire universe as a guru, like teaching us, sending us messages and instruction all the time, as we see our own responses to the display of events, right? We see what gets triggered within us, and that's a teaching. The whole universe is our teacher. It's the display of our own being in that sense. That's also the guru. And the texts that have been written by awakened beings, the sound recordings of their voices chanting or giving instruction, that's also the guru sending these messages, right? And finally, it brings us to the innate guru, our own Buddha nature. No difference between the Buddha's Buddha nature, my Buddha nature, and your Buddha nature. But to hear that is one thing, to develop the experience of that is another, and to fully realize it is something else too. So it really helps to have awakened beings in the world, I think. We wouldn't be where we are doing what we're doing if we hadn't met such beings who were out there, who looked like human beings and did what they did, and were there, just there. I come here every year. I do many things at Garrison, but one particular activity every year is this Dzogchen retreat with Chokyi Nyima Rinpoche. Usually happens in August. And he spends 5 or 6 or 7 days giving people all this elaborate teaching. And then at the end, he just shows them his own experience of his own true nature. Just shows them. And it's not that he's not doing it all the time, but he's kind of like using words and stories and different techniques to kind of get people ready to be open enough to receive it in the best possible way, to be right there with him, to see what was there all along. This is the skillful means of a Dzogchen master. So it is the blessing of the Guru, and it is our supplication that opens us to that blessing. And so it is both, and it is also neither, because it is something even truer and more fundamental than what appears to be happening through that process. But you knew that already. Okay, other questions, comments, feedback?
You were mentioning, raising the cup to your mouth and being sort of mindful of that. And if there's an awareness that happens, it's like different levels of awareness. But most of the time, all I have is that raising the cup to my mouth or being aware of what I'm doing in the moment. So, what's the next step?
Thought depends on awareness. Attention, paying attention to this, that, or the other thing, depends on awareness. Devotion depends on awareness. Love depends on awareness. It's inseparable from awareness. They're really one and the same. Awareness depends on none of these things. In that sense, you can't train in awareness by holding on to something and being very deliberate and mindful and careful. But practicing those kinds of methods, all of the above methods, conditions you to glimpse the unconditioned. It's the paradox of the spiritual path. You rely on your conditioned experience of body, speech, and mind and heart in order to realize that which was completely unconditioned in the first place, which is your true being. So this is how it works, and it makes no sense, and it's real, and it's exactly how it works. So you pay attention to the cup, and you pay attention particularly to other beings. You pay attention to the environment that you share. You never close your mind, your attention, your heart to anything, and that takes practice. Right? And that's where you start to see the truth manifesting more and more in all these different ways when you open your eyes and you open your heart and you pay full attention. When the other people driving their cars on the highway are not just kind of background noise or furniture in your personal life, but they're real people having their own clear or distorted versions of their experience of Buddha nature, right, all the time. When you pay attention more and more to everything happening to you, around you, then you see more and more. You see more and more. Yeah. Here's an interesting point. In the end, no truth is well hidden. Because your mind is your mind. And part of what it means to have a mind is to know what's happening when it's happening, right? You don't just see or hear or feel things, you know that you are having that experience when it's happening. You might not be paying attention to that side of it, but it's there. And so whatever you need to know or learn or figure out about your own being, your own experience, is you're ready to tell yourself that all the time if you pay sufficient, close, balanced, and fearless attention. So no suffering, no trauma, no history, no nothing is enough to cut you off from your own Buddha nature. This is such an important point, especially, in our culture where we feel so damaged sometimes. We're like, we can't recover our true selves because something terrible has happened. No, we can. Because the deeper the truth, the more inevitable it is. And so the more we patiently, diligently continue with our spiritual practice and wake up and attune and pay attention and open more and more and more, the more at our own pace we will see and learn whatever we need to see and learn about ourselves, about others, about the world that we share. You see? Way in the back. Now I have time for some water while the microphone walks itself to him.
I was wondering if you could comment on how you feel about combining different techniques from different spiritual schools into practice.
I feel good about them. There's method and there's wisdom. And we use these two words, but in the end they are and need to be a whole. And method is not just method, it has to be skillful method because it's informed by wisdom. And the more skillful the spiritual methods and techniques we employ, the more we awaken true wisdom. And the proof is in the practice. That which opens us, that which heightens our sensitivity, our awareness, that which softens us, that which makes us more kind, more tolerant, more prepared to work with whatever happens, as the prayer said, whether we feel good or bad, through all the highs and lows, no matter how things seem to be going, the more our practice lets us work with and through all those things, the more wisdom is born of that, the more soft, the more brave we become. And so all techniques, all spiritual methods, I feel, have that kind of purpose or that kind of goal. And to the extent that they work that way, I'm in full favor. And to the extent that they don't, they perhaps are worth re-examining. You cannot join through division, right? Did you say something? No? We talk about the non-sectarian or Rime peace prayer gathering. That's what it means. It means appreciating the validity and power of so many different traditions and approaches and techniques for developing wisdom, devotion, compassion.
Thank you. This has been really wonderful. I'm curious just to know what brought you to this practice. If you could share with us a little bit about your history and the moment in which you knew that you wanted to devote yourself to it.
So I wrote a nice book on this which is
Available.
at your local gift stand. Called A Path Strewn with Flowers and Bones, which is the story of my life and everyone's spiritual journey, I think. So I don't know how to give a very short answer to that question because there are so many and all of them are kind of leading answers, just like you have leading questions. But just to put one face on it, when I was 4 years old, I would wake up at night and be troubled by the question of why we are born into this world if we're just going to die again. And even more troubled by the fact that no one wanted to hear that question. But, not just from a 4-year-old, but from anybody. And as I reached maturity, 11, 12, 13 years old, my basic feeling about life and this world was that as people grew up and were educated, all they were doing was pretending things were true that had no deep or lasting truth. Just being conditioned to believe certain things that there was nothing to it, nothing behind it. So there was always some sense that something is going on here, right? Something clearly is happening. I seem to be over here having this experience, and you all seem to be out there looking at me having your own experiences. What the hell is that about? How did it happen? What are we supposed to do with this situation? Are we supposed to learn something from it? But I couldn't let it go. I could never just let that go. When I was 14, sitting at home brooding on these questions, reading what I could from the local library, like the great book of liberation through hearing in the Bardo. Yeah. Then my parents kind of had enough at some point, and they said, why can't you just be like everyone else and just want to, smoke secretly in the garage and hide your cigarettes from us like all normal kids do, or go to parties and drive a car. I said, can we at least send you to a psychiatrist so you have someone to talk, not psychiatrist, psychologist, so you have someone to talk to. And I said, if it will get you off my back, just leave me be. Then I'll agree to go once and see what happens. They sent me to this counselor in the local Jewish community center. He said, so what's going on? I said, well, the only thing that matters to me is finding out the real reason why we're here in this world and what we're supposed to learn from it, to realize something that is really true rather than we just conveniently tell ourselves it's true so we can get by and get along and manage to navigate our lives. He said, well, that's noble. So when you have goals in life, it's very important to kind of set boundaries and limits. So let's agree on this, that you can search for the meaning of life for, let's say, the next year or two, and if it doesn't work out and you don't realize the meaning of life within 2 years, then reassess and maybe develop some other goals. I said, okay, thank you for your advice. I will never see you again. So here I am, 40 years later, still doing this. It seems to be working out okay. Somebody else?
This may be for practical use, but could you talk a little about some techniques to deal with judgment, both personal and...
I think when you judge others, you should in turn judge yourself very harshly for judging them. And that way there'll be no end to it. No, I'm joking.
I am aware, we're learning cause and effect. I love the phrase, acceptance doesn't mean approval. But maybe more so, certainly beyond the Garrison Institute today, and maybe even here, and I have my host of unhealthy habits that I address or maybe obsess on, but are there techniques where the world seems to be moving towards, not a negative place, but a lot of distractions?
As it happens, I do have some advice for you.
Thank you.
And this kind of goes in the direction of what I mentioned at the beginning, that in the end, it's hard to even draw a line between what we call devotion and what we call compassion. Because if you come closer and closer to the perspective, the paradigm, the perception, or even the realization that we're all kind of in this together of trying to find our way back to our true nature, beyond conditioned appearances, but manifesting in conditioned appearances at the same time. The more you approach that kind of perspective, then the more naturally your perception of others as well as yourself, your responsiveness to whatever people are showing you of their state of mind, their words, their actions, the more naturally you see it as simply and most basically an expression of their awareness or lack of awareness of where their own confusion and suffering comes from, which naturally evokes compassion as the most appropriate and useful response to whatever apparent negativity you see out there that you would otherwise be tempted to just judge and dismiss. See it all as an expression of confusion and therefore suffering, and a longing to be finally and truly relieved of suffering. This is what all beings want. All beings want to be happy and free from suffering. We all want this. This is why we have because we have the nature that we have. And yet most of the time, most of us are completely bewildered about what actually causes happiness and what actually causes suffering. And so we perpetuate the opposite of what we want, which is tragic, which can only evoke compassion. So when someone goes, blah, 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 here it is. I want to be happy. I don't know how. I'm struggling. Can you please tell me? This is why I'm complaining and calling out to you in this annoying voice. You know? This is really what people are saying in their hearts, isn't it? And so you have to hear that more and more and accept that and see that. And then it gets a lot easier. Rather than, you know, it's about me and they're wrong to think that about me and making it like, you know, something closed and rigid and ego-constructed. Yeah? Okay, maybe one more.
Hi. So all of that seems like very good with interpersonal things or things that are about someone being annoying. But there's this level of people being like violent and horrendously terrible. And for instance, in my town, I'm working on police community relations and anti-racism. So from the place of this realm, I reach for the humanity of the other, and then people who I'm supposed to be working with anti-racism are mad at me for not being hating at people that are causing all the pain.
Compassion has many faces, from the most peaceful to the most wrathful. Because what I was just discussing with him, the way you are actually perceiving or relating to something is one thing, and then how you act skillfully based on that is something else. Someone else said acceptance is not approval. And I'm reminded of one of the first Dharma teachings I ever went to, which was in this Vipassana course at Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts, around 1979 or 80 or so. There was an Indian master named Munindraji, who was a teacher of like Jack Kornfield and Joseph Goldstein, those early generation Western Buddhist Dharma teachers. And someone said, what do you do? You know, when someone is just doing something wrong, you know, where does your kindness and compassion and acceptance lead you in that situation? He said, well, one time, you know, I was riding a rickshaw in Bodh Gaya, and someone came up, and you know, my purse of donations that I was bringing to the temple, for the temple, was kind of leaning over the side, and they reached up and they tried to grab and pull the money purse out of my hand. And I really felt bad for them, you know, that they would even think to steal money destined for such, you know, worthy cause. So people said, so what did you do? He said, of course, I took my big umbrella and I smacked him as hard as I could over the head, out of compassion. Which was good for that person as well. So you do what needs to be done, but you do it with clarity, wisdom, and love, even if the manifestation is firm, resolved, unyielding. And incredible courage and power comes from that. Fearlessness comes from that. When you're in that place, you have this, what we call the Vajra quality of immovability, indestructibility. Okay, one more. One more. No one's asking about chanting in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition.
So how do we know that that's the right response, the story you just told? Because it seems to me that involves some judgment. That's smacking the thief's hand. I'm judging.
Only in telling the story later, it seems to be like that. But in the moment, you just see what needs to be done and you just do it because your heart and mind are totally in the right place. We call this natural or unforced or spontaneous enlightened activity, which can, again, be peaceful, it can be magnetizing, it can be expansive and opening, or it can be very wrathful. It comes from wisdom, not from ego mind. This is the point. And that wisdom comes from opening in practice, from cultivating these qualities like compassion and devotion, truly, authentically. And you know what to do without thinking about it. One nice image my teacher, Tulku Rinpoche, used to use is like, when you're a child, it seems like so much effort just to write the letters of the alphabet. But as you mature and it becomes kind of hardwired into your understanding, into your being, when someone hands you something, you sign your name and stuff. Or when someone who has mastered playing the piano, you know, sits down, they don't think, okay, now I have to put my finger here, and now I have to hit that key, and it has to happen in this sequence. It's all just completely and maturely integrated. The skillfulness of it is part of who you are through that training, through that maturation. And these are just kind of, you know, you could say superficial examples for a kind of a training or maturation or development that is much deeper. So good to be here with you today. I had no idea what would happen, and that's perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, weekend, and lives.